Biodun Stephen, I wanted to ask you, it's very interesting. So part of the research brought up this idea around narrative violence, emotional flattening, and stereotype fatigue. I imagine that as actors and storytellers, when they're coming to audition or even coming in, they're coming with stereotyped ideas of how a character should be. What's your process of kind of breaking that down and getting them to understand the complexity of a character?
My process is very simple. I like for us to discuss because I think that in discussing, it helps you to see my point of view, as the writer, and then also sort of helps me see your own interpretation of what has been created.
I wanted to just kind of break down practical ways in which it's manifesting and in which you are seeing it. Because again, art is subliminal, right? People are watching things, they're experiencing things, they're interpreting those things. So I want you to give just really like practical instances.
I'm going to talk about female health, and that's something that a lot of men don't know anything about. They don't know anything about female health. They have wives, they have mothers, they have daughters, but they have no idea that when you turn 40, it's like the lights go down. It's like your body's preparing to die. And it might take you another 40 years to get there. But for a woman, it's very harrowing. It's a disturbing practice. We don't talk about these things. And you have women, I'm in my 40s, I'm closer to 50 than I am 40. And I know what I've been going through in the last 3 or 4 years. But there's nobody to talk to. Okay, Mrs. Boyo, I talked to you about it. But, there's nobody else. And it's only because she's experienced it. But we're not telling these stories. We're not even mentioning it. I don't need you to make the whole film about premenopause and menopause and all of those things, but indicate so that when a man is watching it, it's like, is this happening to you? Oh, wow. Okay, what can I do? You understand? But you're not talking about it. And that one is vital, personal to me. You understand?
Brenda, the fact that, watching Anne Hastrop on TV was the first time she was like, oh, ambition, aspiration. These are and her mother were the two women. At the time when you were making Checkmates, is that something that you experienced, right, from audience members? And is it something that you thought this character would be able to produce this kind of, I don't want to say role model, but, influence, I guess, on people or young people at the time?
I also, like Hamaka, was surrounded by pretty strong, very smart women. My mother was a worker, very smart woman, very knowledgeable. And so when I got the part of Anne Hastrop, it wasn't outside the realm of, it wasn't a character that I thought was impossible and not timely for Nigeria. I thought it was something that, people would watch and embrace. And at the time we were doing it, yes. But I could not have foreseen just how impactful that character was for women. I think when it struck me over time, because we did that, I think it's almost 30 years, isn't it? It's even more than, I should be better at math, but it's one of those things. For a lot of people, I still get that look. It influenced me, it did this, it did that. So I couldn't have foreseen just how, impactful it would be. Because I think in a bit of maybe being a little naive, I thought that it was normal and it would just be a progression from that sort of character being played. It was something that we would see just naturally in the corporate space, and then for young girls in school to just sort of take it on, and you don't sometimes think how deeply film or television or media can influence, but it's in seeing the reaction for people, even 30 years after, saying things like, this influenced me, this is the reason I got into corporate Nigeria, I think we were on the same panel when that conversation, there was a group of young women that were in a secondary school in Lagos, and they said they had an almost Anne Hastrop club. They would do their hair the same way. It was all about the shoulder pads. But more than anything, apart from their parents, it was always important that they would be somebody, that they would dream beyond perhaps what they had been encouraged to. And a lot of them were encouraged to, dream big, be lawyers, engineers, So it was really impactful. But I have to admit, I don't think I saw at that beginning how important and how meaningful it would be.
You're a producer of film as well, trying to create complex female characters?
Our imagination, being limited and being comfortable almost in going back to embrace more traditional tropes. Sometimes you see a character and you almost say, okay, look, this is a bit, yeah, too much. Will the audience digest it? But we need to be bolder, because there was a quote there that said something about, we're a mirror and we want to change the reflection. But apart from just changing the reflection, we also have to present the image that we want to see. We need to present the reality that we want to see, represent it on stage, because on screen, because we want to see it, and we already see it in real life. There's so many influential, important women who are doing great things, and there are also some women that are just living, and that's fine. But we need to reflect all of that. So what I have seen in the work that I've received is, because I've also been very focused on making sure that I get really good work that is, if there's a woman in it, she's represented, she's multifaceted, it's not just one dimensional. I have focused on making sure that that happens. We've workshopped things and written around it and all of that. And we've tried to, do stories that are not typical. Typical stories. One that comes to mind is the character Nse plays in a hotel called Memory. And there was a lot of conversation, because this was a divorced woman and she was trying to find herself. And in all the conversations, the women got it, but the men, I had a group of men. We had, just a conversation with men. And it was like, where are you finding herself from? Where? Where was she? Where is she lost? And all of that. But she was trying to find herself, her identity beyond just being a wife or a mother, and more than that. So it's just being very intentional about the kind of stories you receive, and not allowing yourself to be limited by culture and what is traditional. Yeah.
Again, even within the flattening of the characters, we flatten our audience by thinking that perhaps even because they belong to a different socioeconomic group, then they cannot be complex human beings. Being knowledgeable or being smart has nothing to do with how much English you can speak. So is this an issue of laziness for us as creators?
If you examine Okonkwo from Things Fall Apart, is he a strong man or is he a weak man? What perspective would you take? But my point is education, first of all, Then, of course, with it comes with all the limiting, and with the lack of it, rather, comes all the limiting. So sometimes I'm not even sure people know what they're supposed to know. So I can't really say filmmakers are lazy. I can say that they're underexposed.
So we have an education gap within
Yes.
our artistry.
Yes, we do, and that affects everything that we do, not just the stories. It's also in the editing, the sound, the technical, and all of that. But it reflects in our stories so much that part of the reasons why some people say they're not working in Nigeria anymore is because the stories are traveling, and I think it's an underexposure. We can tell local stories globally.
Sort of to speak on this, beyond education, one of the questions I've been asked over time is, how come your stories are different? I write based on what I know. I write on my experiences. I take one character, and then I assume that this character has two choices. There's the familiar choice, and there's the unfamiliar choice, and I focus on the unfamiliar choice. That is how I've actively been able to sort of change or flip the channel on how I see stories. I'm largely influenced by my mother, who was a single mom. And so maybe like Auntie Ego, I have only known hardworking women. She was a hard worker. But she also had a lot of flaws. So whilst I'm trying to represent her, I'm trying to make sure that her flaws, I sort of address it and then have that character transform by learning from it. So what I'm trying to say very easily is, there is a girl that was born and the only thing she can do is prostitution. She would do it in the story, but she would meet redemption along the way. But the easiest way for, this is me now, fallacy, generalization. The easiest way for us to do in Nollywood is she meets a man and that man marries her and changes her life. What I would do is that even from building that character, there is a hunger for more. So that when that man who becomes an ally sees her, he sees the hunger for more, which is what then births the transformation. I don't know if I'm making sense.
Yes.
And so I think that many times as writers, it's not a lack of imagination. Well, lack of imagination, because many times we only think our 360. You have to think about, this is what I know. Then how can I flip the choice? And then you change the narrative. I don't know if...
Yes.
You are making sense.
Money is such a prevalent conversation, even in the structure and the system and how the stories are told, that oftentimes it's as though the creativity is something that's coming last. What is it about stereotypes that seem to be the things that sell? Or because I've also heard other filmmakers say, if you write it like this, they are not going to want it. Or the producers are not, the distributors are not going to want it. Or the people in charge are not going to want it.
Many times you grow up seeing women who are at home, taking care of the children, praying over their husbands. It's pretty much, you go to school, you graduate, you marry, your job then is your children and your husband. It's something that we've all seen. And it makes for better conversation. It makes for, but you know what makes for even better conversation is when you flip the switch. That makes for even better conversation, because that's when you can even effect change. And to digress a bit and piggyback on what you said about stereotyping, it's same thing with actors. When you see Auntie Shola Shobowale, you only cast her for one thing. One thing is evident. She's shouting. And she will do 360-degree spin around. She will do that. But guess what? I've directed this woman before, and she said to me, "Do you want me to shout?" And I said, "No, ma. I don't want the shouting." So, because, and for me, when I work with so many actors, I take these people and then I say, "No, well, you do something else," because I feel like that it's fresh. Yeah. It's lazy for us producers, yes. However, you know that the audience, many times we are serving the audience, is the problem. We keep serving the audience. Once they see Auntie Shola, they know that it's action. Once they see Patience Otoko, it's wickedness. It's all these things. So we're trying to serve the audience, but how about, you can't keep serving them rice and beans. You know what? Put small dodo, they will still chop it. But let's not be afraid to do that. And I think that's what we're afraid, because it's always about the naira and kobo. Yeah, we're so afraid to try new things because, money has to come back.
Your perspective as a woman sometimes is so intricate, so intense, and so intimate that somebody else cannot understand it if they don't experience that thing. And so this kind of leads me to the question about us often talking about having more women in different parts of the filmmaking process. So I can speak to that in the sense of writing, right? You can see that, okay, a different perspective is told because, yes, I'm a writer. But when we talk about, we need more women in cinematography, we need more women in editing, in camera work, all of these sorts of things, post-production as well. People think it's just a generic statement of just inclusion. No. So again, because I'm a very practical person, I want you to kind of enunciate on what are the ways in which more women in these roles change the function of a story, change the way stories are being told in very, very realistic and practical ways that people may not be thinking about.
So last year, I exec produced a slate of short films. And by the time the films got to me on the first cut, I was like, why did you send this to me? Because I'm like, this is not acceptable, And sitting down in that room with other colleagues, I was basically editing the film by timestamps and telling them, cut this out at this time, cut that out at this time, put this in at this time, put that in, no, bring this frame here, do this, do that. And I did that for 10 short films, right? And I probably did it in half a day, And I think it's because I'm meticulous at what I do. I think it's because I'm a mom of 2 children, of different generations. I think it's because I'm a woman who holds pain, physical pain, as part of her life. I think those 3 things are true. Those 3 things happen at the same time. They're continuous. My mom's ship doesn't stop. Today is my son's birthday, and I had to stay. Thank you. I had to stay home and come here a little later than I planned because I needed to wish him a happy birthday when he woke up. At the same time, I'm talking to my team, trying to get today organized. So I think the multitasking power of women, we have that thing. It's a spiritual gift as far as I'm concerned. God gave it to us because we hold life, we create life, And I think that gives us something. And without sounding fruity, The practice of the training of us women and men, you have missed out on a lot, let me tell you the truth. Because of the way we are trained, it's almost militant in how to organize yourself, keep yourself together, articulate yourself, put your legs together, all of those things. They give us skills that are not monetized, that are not valued, but those skills are there. They keep us who we are, while we can come here. Maybe the world is falling apart today for somebody here. Even me, I don't know. But the point is, we have that organizational capacity. And I think that that's what women bring to the work that they do, quite honestly, because they're thinking about kids, they're thinking about food, they're thinking about work, they're thinking about the man, and all of those things happening simultaneously. And I think that that is a skill that is undervalued. Yeah. It's undervalued because nobody articulates it to say this is what a woman brings, when they're asking you, what do you bring to the table?
What about you? I mean, even in terms of technical work, what are some of the ways that you've seen women work differently from men?
I think first, I think that we need to demystify something that when there are women together, there's bickering. Yes, we go fight. Tongue and teeth, they are do
That's
fighting.
human now.
Yes. But I don't think there's a function of the gender. I think that there's something about women, it's that we're able to bond together. And I'll give an example. Me being a director, directing a very emotional scene. It is important that moment, my actor is ready. In fact, most of my crew members are here. We always have a conversation. It is one take. I don't want to take this person through this emotional turmoil multiple times. So everybody is ready, just so that we can help the actor be in that moment and perform and get it. Now, a man might not know that because act it, I don't like it, take two. There are even moments where you do a scene and you're not happy with the scene and you say, you know what, how about let's take a break? Go somewhere. Tomorrow we'll pick up the scene because I know that you're not emotionally. These are the sensitivities that a woman to woman share. And I think that is very important. In fact, how you are moving around the set in that moment, around the actor, just helping to make sure that the actor delivers. And I think that these are some of the sensitivities that we share. But some men, let's go, next thing. Like, in fact, somebody is trying to get into a character, my DP is shouting. And I'm like, this person is in a zone. Let's preserve the moment. But because we are two different genders, we don't really appreciate this. And it's not even just about a female actor. Even for male actor, we have to sort of protect them. And this is sensibilities that, most women, so it's important that we have more women.
When you have a woman looking at these things through a female gaze, behind the scenes especially, it's very different. And when you were talking, it reminded me of a scene. As Biodun said, working with women is not what people often think is going to be fraught with difficulty. There might be difficulty, but there's also a symmetry and a chemistry. I've had the same chemistry with men as well. It's not even about that. But there's a difference when it's with a woman. I worked with an all-women team, and there were lots of men. It was wonderful with all of us, but there was just an ease.
What is still deterring us from getting into the nitty-gritty technical stuff? Because we can't keep, it's like we're talking with two sides of our mouth at the end of the day when we are constantly, we need more women in blah, blah, blah. But then everything is just, I want to be an actress, I want to be a star.
Again, I think that when we think about filmmaking, Nollywood, the first thing that comes to your mind is I want to be an actor. I wanted to be an actor when I started off. It was my dream. And I found my way behind the camera quite reluctantly. But then I found that was my place. And I embraced it, and by the grace of God, I've been thriving there. I think that I always tell people that when you come into the industry, the first point of entry usually for most people is I want to act. In fact, most of the crew members you see today came in with the hope of I want to be an actor because there's something about being in front of the camera. It comes with stardom, it comes popularity, and then now in this digital age, it comes with a lot of free things. Free money, free whatever. So I understand that. But I think that what is wrong is for a female to not realize that you have greater potentials behind the camera. You can even thrive even much more than in front of it. I have come to appreciate it now that I don't think I would ever have blown. I would have been a wakapas 20 years after. But I'm so happy where I am. And a lot of people are just afraid. A lot of girls, a lot of women are just afraid to take that leap. There's space for you. There's space. Come.
The entire creative industry was built on apprenticeship. And when you were going for your apprenticeship as a cameraman, not a DP, it was go and learn camera. It wasn't because they were going to be lifting those heavy cameras. Women were just automatically ruled out. You understand? And that's what I think fed this it's men, it's men, it's men. Because it's the apprenticeship, you understand? Don't forget, you need to spend nights on sets. You need to be there overnight. Your father was not going to let you out of the house because you want to go and learn camera. So that's where it started from. Unfortunately, it's moved because it's not like we have a lot of schools that's teaching camera. There are not a lot of schools. You still have to go through this apprenticeship situation. So this is where, if you are running an apprenticeship, I think it's important that you hire women. And you don't just hire women into the apprenticeship program. You create an environment where women can thrive. You understand? Because a woman will have her period while she's at work, so she needs a bathroom. A woman will get pregnant and have a baby while she's at work, so she needs somewhere to lay her baby. It doesn't need to be a creche. It just needs to be a clean office, where they can sit. And these are the things that will encourage women to join at one point in time, because when they come to your set and they see that, oh, there's a woman with a child here, it means it's safe. Because that's one thing men don't know. Women walk around thinking about their safety. You don't have to think about that as a man, but as a woman, that is your reality. Every girl here, every woman here walks around thinking about her safety. Can you imagine that that's what you're thinking about when you're walking to the parking lot because the sun has just gone down? Imagine that, even in Nigeria. So I think that if you want women, act like you want them. Behave like you want them. Build the systems that will allow them to be around you. That way they'll come. And as a shameless plug, we're starting female representation storytelling.
We have to just be more intentional. It is doable. As you said, the stories that have sold, the have been women's stories have been the backbone. So it's just been coming out of our comfort zone, one, but also being very intentional and being very practical. Brenda mentioned something about training for bias. And I have been in several juries recently where one of the key aspects of our judging was bias training. If we look at that, so that when you're being intentional, you're saying that in every story I tell, I want to tell it with great respect. So you go in there and make sure that when this story is written, from the moment it is written with strong female characters. And when I say strong, I'm not talking about she must be one hard babe or whatever. I mean in terms of how multifaceted that character is going to be. Tell it properly. If we've already sold this whole industry on these sorts of stories, then we should break out of, not try and keep being safe. Try and do something revolutionary, if that's the word you want to use, about the kind of stories that we're telling and the kind of women. They will embrace it. Just make it slightly different. We've seen it happen. So instead of Eniola being this kingpin who loses all her family, let her be this terrible woman, because there are women, if we're really telling stories properly, women are not one type. We're all goody two shoes, or we're all strong and smart and perfect. The word is multifaceted. We're everything. We're great, we're terrible, we're sirens, we're gold diggers.
Yes.
Yeah. And then we're also wonderful mothers, wonderful sisters, great mothers-in-law. The whole, yes, we're a whole range of things, and we can represent all of that in the stories that we tell, and those stories will sell just as well as the stories before. I think there was a safety in sticking with the traditional, the stereotypes, because they have worked. But I see that there's a pushback. Now people are saying, I want to see women like myself, like my mother, like my sister, like the corporate titans that I see, like the woman in the market who is silently bearing carrying her whole family, paying for their school fees. I want to see them. I want to see them stand. And I think those stories can sell. We just need to be very intentional about where we're going forward.